Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's presentation on AI enhanced API microservices and non-functional testing. My name is Jamie Motherall, and I'm a product marketing manager and functional testing specialist here at Parasoft. And on the line with us today, we have my colleague from our solution engineering team, Ramiro Martinez. Ramiro is going to be assisting us with the demonstration today, as well as our live Q&A at the end of the presentation. Now, today's presentation will focus on Parasoft's continuous quality testing platform, SOA-Test solution, and how it helps teams to easily adopt, accelerate, and optimize their testing practices. Now, before we dive in, some light housekeeping. We will be showing a demo of some of SOA-Test's AI test generation capabilities in today's webinar presentation. So we recommend setting your display to full screen during the technical demonstration to get the best visibility. Now, if you do have any questions at any point during the presentation, please feel free to put a question into the Q&A box, and we will be sure to review those questions at the end of today's presentation.
Now, let's start with an intro into what we're going to go over. So we'll start with talking a little bit about the Parasoft continuous quality testing platform. Then we're going to go into how one of Parasoft's customers, Northbridge Financial, was able to leverage Parasoft SOA-Test to help them overcome testing challenges so that they could meet their API testing goals. From there, we'll introduce Parasoft SOA-Test, just do a quick high-level overview of its capabilities, all designed to help you to streamline and optimize functional testing. We'll then get a bit more granular, and I'll turn it on over to Ramiro. He's going to dive into that demonstration of our AI-enhanced API test generation capabilities using SOA-Test Smart API Test Generator. Then we'll look at how you can reuse functional test cases built with SOA-Test to meet your non-functional testing requirements. We'll discuss how SOA-Test integrates into CI/CD pipelines and optimizes test execution. And then we'll do a little wrap up and get to our live Q&A part of the presentation. Now, if you do have any questions throughout the presentation today, go ahead and pop them into the Q&A box at any time. Again, we will review all of those at the end of the presentation. Now, lastly, I'd like you all to keep in mind, this is a high-level overview of Parasoft SOA-Test capabilities. If you'd like to see something that's more in-depth as far as a technical demonstration on SOA-Test, I highly recommend reaching out to us on our website. Go to parasoft.com/request-a-demo and go ahead and put in that request. We'll reach on out to you, have a little discussion around your testing needs, and then provide you with a demonstration, technical demonstration that's really mapped to your specific challenges, to your specific requirements when it comes to a testing tool. All right, without further ado, let's dive in. So the Parasoft continuous quality testing platform is an open, intelligent, and outcome-driven software testing platform that integrates software testing from code scanning, unit testing, and code coverage, as well as functional testing, API testing to UI and manual testing. The platform enforces software quality, reliability, safety, and security, even in strictly regulated markets. And data actually passes between tools to improve the efficiency of test creation and enables teams to repurpose existing testing assets for expanded testing, such as load and performance or security. AI and ML are used to enhance and optimize testing across the entire platform. And every aspect of the platform is designed to accelerate, optimize, and help you to scale your test automation across each phase of the SDLC. So let's take a moment to discuss how Parasoft's functional testing solutions are being used by our customers. Northbridge Financial has been a customer of Parasoft since 2021. They originally came to us while exploring tooling and strategies to help empower their DevOps initiative to improve testing agility and productivity. Their application under test was fairly standard in architecture, in which they had a user interface, and under the hood, APIs that communicated with their backend systems, such as databases, servers, as well as third-party broker applications. Now, they determined prior to working with Parasoft that what they really wanted to do was to shift their testing focus from the heavy reliance they had on web UI testing to focus on the API layers for their test automation, as they needed to ensure that their integrations were well tested and understood really the benefits of shifting left their functional validation strategy. However, as they started to analyze their current API testing strategy, looking for ways to optimize and scale, they realized that they had a real challenge, especially when it came to scaling API test automation. You see, API testing was being done using a homegrown test framework in which API tests were being written in C sharp by some members of the dev and testing teams. However, their QA testers were really diverse in regards to skill set, with many of them being more oriented to web UI testing or manual testing. So that meant many testers did not have really the technical knowledge or the experience required to engineer these test scripts in C sharp. In addition to this, manually writing the test scripts and maintaining them was very time consuming for the team. And this really limited their ability to scale their API test automation, as they didn't have the right staff in place to continue to just hand write API test scripts. And that time dedication to manually create these tests was just not feasible for scaling. And this is really where Parasoft SOA Test came in. SOA Test offered a codeless strategy for test creation that enabled them to keep their existing staff while empowering them to rapidly generate API test cases, enabling them to scale their API test automation strategy. So by using Parasoft SOA Test, Northbridge Financial was able to reduce their test creation times by 60%, enabling them to rapidly scale that API test automation. They were able to increase their API coverage by 80%. So they were able to ensure that all of their critical integrations and business workflows were well tested and reliable. And then finally, they were able to reduce their test execution time by 90% by shifting their testing focus from the UI to the API layers. Now, if you'd like to know a little bit more about Northbridge Financial's experience using our solutions, we will have a link at the end of the presentation to their full case study so you can read it yourself. I'm also going to put into the chat at the end of the presentation a link to a library of presentations that we have from some of Parasoft's customers, including Northbridge Financial, so that you can actually hear about how our customers have leveraged these tools and the types of outcomes that they've been able to achieve. So now let's take a moment to introduce Parasoft SOA Test. We like to think of SOA Test as your enterprise testing Swiss Army knife, an all-in-one solution for API, microservices, functional and non-functional test automation. SOA Test helps teams to easily adopt or scale API testing with a scriptless approach to test creation. It supports the testing of front-end or experience APIs, middleware APIs, and back-end APIs. And it also supports microservices and event-based messaging. SOA Test actually supports over 120 plus message formats and protocols, enabling it to support a vast and wide range of use cases and tech stacks, which is perfect for scaling across an enterprise. It also supports web UI testing with its easy record and playback features, and it provides users with an easy solution for end-to-end integration and even accessibility testing for WCAG related issues. SOA Test also supports functional as well as non-functional testing methodologies such as performance or security penetration testing, and it provides an easy and again codeless strategy to data-drive test cases. Now, SOA Test is enhanced with AI and ML capabilities to help teams to increase their testing productivity. It offers a record and replay test generation capability for front-end APIs. And we're actually going to explore that in more detail shortly, showing you a full demonstration of that. Now, it can also be optionally integrated with large language models such as OpenAI or Azure OpenAI to enable teams to rapidly generate API scenario tests from service definition files and user-crafted prompts. It also enables teams to easily maintain test cases when services change with its change advisor capability that will identify and bulk refactor impacted API test cases. Now, our goal at Parasoft is always to optimize and improve test automation. And Parasoft SOATest does offer a couple ways to optimize. We support the gathering of code coverage from the functional testing of Java and .NET applications, even in complex distributed microservices. SOATest also includes test impact analysis, which helps teams to optimize their test strategy and test executions to focus on application change. It also enables teams to monitor the traffic between two individual microservices. SOATest easily integrates to CI/CD pipelines, it supports Docker and Kubernetes deployments, and it offers advanced reporting and analytics with its integration to Parasoft's DTP platform for trends analysis. It can also integrate with requirements tracking solutions such as Jira X-Ray, and through DTP provides a in-depth reporting on requirements coverage and traceability. We're also able to enable teams to easily generate safe and secure virtual test data through data modeling. And that helps teams to easily and rapidly provision test data, so reducing test data wait times. This data can then be leveraged in SOATest to data drive your test cases. Now I'm going to pause here. Ramiro, is there anything else that you'd like to add to just our introduction of Parasoft SOATest capabilities?
Yeah, I wanted to mention that SOATest has a rich suite of validation tools that can be used throughout these different levels. So you can be assured that the tests that are being ran, whether that be an API test, web browser, or a performance test, are viable tests that are assuring the behavior of the service.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And our validation tools, just like the rest of SOATest, it does not require any scripting, any coding. So really, at the end of the day, SOATest is all about helping teams to create these test cases very quickly by focusing on the business logic under test. Now, before we move on, I do want to also quickly talk about our sister solution to SOATest, which is our virtualized solution. Virtualize actually installs in the same IDE as SOATest, so they really complement each other when it comes down to synergy. Virtualize provides teams with the ability to stabilize their test environments so that they can test their applications in isolation. It offers service virtualization where teams can scriptlessly create virtual services or service simulations from live or recorded API traffic or from definition files. It also enables teams to keep virtual services always up to date with continuous traffic recording using Parasoft's learning mode. It also provides teams with an easy way to orchestrate their test cases so that when a dependency in their environment goes down, testing is not disrupted and automation keeps flowing by automatically switching the test cases to run against a virtual service when the live service goes down. It supports CRUD, and it does also have a high throughput for performance testing use cases. Coupled together with SOATest, Virtualize provides a complete solution to enable continuous testing or to help you to scale and optimize functional test automation in enterprise deployments. Now, at this point, I'm going to turn it on over to Ramiro. He is going to take on over, and we're going to get a little bit more granular here. He's going to dive into a presentation, a little overview on our AI enhanced test generation capabilities in SOATest Smart API Test Generator, and then we'll dive into that technical demonstration. All right, you should have control, Ramiro.
All right, so let me do that. Share my screen.
Oh, I'm seeing the wrong screen.
I apologize for that, everyone.
There we go.
Apologies, they did the apparently did the default screen.
This is how they know we're live.
All right, so yeah, so thank you, Jamie. Traditionally, when testing through the UI, you're not thinking about how the APIs work or how they're used. The UI already has all that business logic built in, and extracting those details and orchestrating the sequence of API calls necessary to fulfill the needs of the UI workflows. But when testers need to actually write those API test cases against the system directly, they don't know that business logic that the front end was orchestrating. We capture that network traffic while exercising the UI and build a model of what stateful data needs to be extracted and parameterized so that the sequence of generated API tests will faithfully execute the business logic defined by the user interface. So we're automatically generating API tests that perform the functionalities and workflows typically tested through the UI and running them without the UI in the equation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that breakdown, Ramiro. Now, this does have a number of benefits when you think about how slow UI testing can be, both from an execution standpoint and a diagnosing failure standpoint. By adopting a lean UI testing practice where business workflows can be tested at the API layer, you're ensuring your test strategy can grow as the complexity of the system grows. And this enables teams to more easily scale their test automation and reach higher test velocities due to API tests being faster to execute, having a lower maintenance cost as APIs are more resilient to change, and it also makes defect remediation easier. So let's dive into that technical demonstration and show them now what AI-powered test generation can do.
Absolutely. So Smart API test generation is composed of two different parts. The first part is what we see here, a plugin for Chrome. With this plugin, we actually begin recording traffic that's occurring on the web browser. So once I hit start recording, any actions that perform on the web page that trigger API calls, those API calls are going to get recorded then. And what we do is we send that traffic over to SOA test that has the smart AI that will parse through that traffic and find patterns and then make the actual test case for us. So let's take a look at that. We're going to log in, which is triggering API calls. The application we're going to be using today is Parasoft Demo App, which is a reservation application that we created. It allows us to make orders of backpacks and camping gear, add them to our cards, and then submit that for an order. And what we want to do is actually perform the same actions from the API level directly. So we're going to enter in a receiver name, get a location, and eventually submit for approval. And every single action we performed here was creating an API call. And at the end of it, we have an order here. So if everything goes well with our API test case, we should see a second order appear here when we run this test. So we stop the recording. This is going to have a pop-up come up for us. We'll call this webinar order. We can also place an associated work item as well. So for manual testers who are working with Jira or Azure DevOps to track the requirements, you can actually run through your manual test as normal. Come here, set your work item, generate your test case. Your test case will now automatically have a work item associated with it. And if you execute it and publish those results to DTP, connected to your Jira or Azure DevOps, it actually will populate with results over there. For now, we're just going to leave this blank and generate a test case. So you might have noticed here where there's actually a new test case that was just created for us right here, this webinar underscore order. And if we expand this, we should see quite a few different APIs that were triggered here. So this is every single API that is relevant to our order that was actually triggered by the web browser that occurred earlier, that we were working with earlier. And if I expand this, we can see some interesting tools here. So down in number 4, we open this up. This is a JSON data bank. This noticed through the AI that certain aspects of the response traffic was actually being utilized later in calls. So what it did is automatically set this JSON data bank for us, and it extractions to make sure that those values are extracted and then parameterized down the line. So if we come down all the way down to, I believe it's actually number 40, we see here this extraction that we did all the way in test number, I think it was 4, is actually being utilized. Yeah, test 4. And this is very difficult to do at a human level, right? If you're trying to do this this process, you open up the Chrome DevTools you run your test, you then have to go through all these different API calls, and a lot of them are going to be visual things that are on the web page, HTML traffic and things like that aren't actually relevant to the actual functionality of the tool. So it can be much more difficult to do this. So you can see just how difficult it could be sometimes to find relevant information when you could be searching for relevant information, 30, 40, 100 API calls back. So this makes it much easier from the AI level. The AI makes it much easier for us. Additionally, I have an asserter tool here. So if it finds a location where assertion is relevant, it can actually add one here for us as well. But most importantly, does this actually affect the web page? Does it actually affect the backend services that it should be communicating with? So we had earlier a single order. So let's run this test now. Okay, ran as expected. And if we come over here to my demo app, we see that it does generate a second order for me. So that same business logic that the web browser, that the UI level was doing, we can do that at the API level for much and significantly faster as well. Let's pop back over to the slides. So to recap from a high level, we allow users to record traffic between a client and a service where the client is typically a UI. Then the smart generates AI builds those models for us and generates a stateful API test based on that model. Then we go further and allow those models to be enhanced and trained over time. For instance, if the testing team knows a specific API should always have a certain type of assertion, the model can actually be trained so that when any member of the team records a new API test scenario that includes that API, the test will be generated with the assertion, saving the testers more time with repetitive test setup. The result is a recorded playback API testing workflow that is substantially faster than UI testing, where the AI does the hard work for us. Additionally, I said typical UI, and that's because this workflow isn't constrained to just recording traffic from a UI. We can actually proxy between two APIs and leverage the same workflow to generate API scenarios as well. Jamie, is there anything you would like to add here?
Yeah. One great aspect about this test creation strategy is if you do have existing automated web UI test cases, and this can be regardless of the test framework, you can actually easily leverage those test cases to rapidly generate API test scenarios with SOATest by executing the test cases on the Chrome web browser while SOATest is recording and capturing that API traffic. So if you think about it, this really allows teams that want to adopt API testing, but maybe they've highly invested already in web UI testing. They're trying to find a way to shift left, trying to find a way to adopt it, and maybe their team is not very familiar with API testing, but they understand that business logic under test. Well, it allows them to very easily leverage their existing test cases to generate an API test suite that complements those existing test cases. And that test suite is going to be faster to execute. It's going to be more resilient to change. So it's got all these great benefits when it comes down to scaling their test automation. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to take back control real quick. Give us just a minute here. Oh, perfect. And I will go back to sharing. Can you see my screen? Can you
Yes.
confirm that for me, Ramiro? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So now we saw the top-down approach to API testing using that smart test generator for recorded traffic on the UI. SOATest also offers a bottom-up approach for the development of new APIs or the testing of back-end APIs. So teams can use service definition files in SOATest to easily generate API component tests to validate the individual services and ensure they align with their original design. You can also then drag and drop those component tests into a test case to manually build out an API scenario test. Or with SOATest optional LLM integration, testers can leverage a service definition file with a user-crafted requirements prompt using natural language. And the AI then will analyze the definition file and generate an API scenario test following that command prompt. So we really provide our testers with a lot of different avenues to streamline test creation, optimize it, and really making it an easier barrier for less technical testers to adopt API testing. This approach enables teams to shift left, makes API testing easier, and helps teams to effectively scale their test automation. Now, let's talk a bit about test reusability, because this is one of my favorite aspects of our SOA test solution. Typically, when you're testing an application, you're going to get, yes, your functional testing requirements. You validate the functionality, validate that it does things correctly, you're getting that right response. But you're also probably going to have some requirements when it comes down to things like performance testing, security testing. So let's talk about that a bit. Now, we discussed in our overview how SOA test supports a wide range of testing methods, including API microservices, web UI or end-to-end testing, and even data-driven testing. Now, each of these types of test cases created with SOA test can be codelessly repurposed for non-functional testing. So testers can, with a few clicks, repurpose a test case or a full test scenario for protocol-based performance testing. This allows a tester to shift left the validation of their application's performance and functional testing under heavy load. Teams can easily customize these test cases using different load levels, load distributions, and so on. And you can also distribute virtual users across remote server machines to simulate extreme loads or to test from different locations. Any performance testing results can then be published into SOA test load test continuum for trends analysis over time, enabling teams to easily identify any performance degradation in their APIs. Now, same way that we can do that with performance testing, we also do penetration testing. So penetration testing is critical for uncovering security holes in your application. And with SOA test, you can, again, take those existing API functional test cases and create security tests, adding penetration testing to your automated CI process. SOA test has a built-in integration. So it's out of the box, an integration with OWASP ZAP to validate your APIs comply with OWASP or CWE standards and to identify API vulnerabilities. SOA test can also be integrated into Burp Suite for security penetration testing purposes as well. Now, while most of today's presentation has focused on API testing, we did briefly discuss in the capability overview that SOA test also supports web UI testing, and it offers a codeless record and playback strategy for test creation. So similarly for repurposing test cases for security or performance testing, you can repurpose those SOA test web UI test cases for web accessibility testing, enabling teams to start looking for issues related to WCAG as a part of their QA workflows. So this gives teams really a head start in ensuring that they are building widely accessible applications, and it reduces future rework. Like any SOA test generated test case, SOA test non-functional test cases can be easily integrated into your CI/CD pipeline. So I'm going to turn it back over to Ramiro. He's going to talk a little bit about how SOA test integrates to CI/CD pipelines and how it can also optimize test execution while streamlining remediation.
Thank you, Jamie. It all starts with the SOA test desktop, where test cases are actually being generated. From there, test cases are integrated into the CI/CD pipeline using SOA Test Automation Edition, which provides a command line interface for easy integration. SOA Test supports a wide range of CI/CD pipelines, but some of the most popular are Jenkins, Azure DevOps, and Bamboo. From there, SOA Test impact analysis kicks in. SOA Test will automatically analyze what lines of code have been changed and correlate those changes with the impacted test cases, enabling teams to focus their testing on the areas of their application that were recently modified. This enables testers to focus their efforts on the areas of the application that are at most risk and most likely to contain defects or bugs, instead of retesting their entire application each time a change occurs. Results are then published to Parasoft GTP platform for reporting and analytics, providing management with a centralized view of quality. Reports can be automatically sent back to the CI/CD platform for reviewing testing outcomes and gating builds.
All right, so let's recap real quick, and then we'll get to our Q&A portion. I do see a lot of questions in there. Parasoft empowers teams, SOATest empowers teams with a faster, smarter, AI-based approach to API testing, as it provides teams with a way to create API test cases from recordings or from service definition files. It provides an approach to test creation that requires zero scripting, helping teams to easily adopt an API testing practice. And it supports a wide range of, again, message formats and protocols. Tests can be reused for early non-functional testing, such as performance and security, or weave in web accessibility testing. And then it offers test impact analysis, and that helps teams to optimize their test executions in CI/CD pipelines so that they can focus testing on application change. This really allows teams to accelerate that feedback loop and allows them to validate changes a lot faster. It really provides a complete solution to automate and optimize functional testing across the entire enterprise.
Now we are almost at the Q&A portion of today's presentation. We do have some reading materials and resources we recommend, though, in case you are ready to dig a little bit deeper into our solutions and platform. So if you would like to know more about how Parasoft supports testing across the entirety of the SDLC, I highly recommend our continuous quality testing platform brochure, as this gives a nice overview of our capabilities. And then I also always recommend reviewing some of our case studies. There's two I really recommend right now. The first one we just recently published, and it's from Woodman Life. Woodman Life has been using Parasoft's continuous quality testing platform for their functional testing solutions, and that includes SOATest as well as its sister solution, Virtualize. This case study really demonstrates the impact the Parasoft continuous quality testing platform can have in regards to ROI and increasing the velocity of test automation. So right there, you can see the QR code as well as the URL to access that case study. The second case study I recommend reviewing is one we spoke about in today's presentation, and that is from Northbridge Financial. Here you can also grab that URL and the QR code. Now, when considering different solutions in the market, I also always recommend reviewing analyst reports, as they do a lot of the footwork for you on exploring tool capabilities. We recently participated in the 2025 GigaOM Analyst Radar Report on API functional automated testing, which analyzed 14 different vendor solutions for API testing and service mocking. It looked at AI capabilities. So this was a very comprehensive study. And Parasoft was selected as the leader in the report, as well as a fast mover for our innovations. You can download the full report with the QR code that you see there. And again, this is just an excellent way for you to narrow down what solutions might be the best fit for your team's needs. So it's a great place to start. Another great way to get started is also to just request a technical custom demo with our Parasoft team. If you're ready to dig in, you want to learn more, feel free to go to Parasoft/request a demo and submit your request. One of our team members will reach on out to you to schedule a call to collect some business details as far as what your goals are and what your testing requirements are. And then we'll schedule an in-depth demonstration that's going to be mapped to your specific testing needs. Now, at this point, I see we do have some questions in the Q&A box already. So we're going to start digging into your questions. Let's dive right in.